We are oddly glib about the Luka issues, right? I mean, we see it season after season. His jawline disappears. It's crazy. There's a lot of debate over that clip of him walking out of the plane in the all black attire. Some people think he looks skinny. I thought he looked like Al Borland from Home Improvement or Sargon of Akkad, the British rightist YouTuber from back in the day. He did not look healthy to me. And also, I'm looking at it through the NBA lens because there are people who are casual fans who are saying, because this has become mainstream, they're going, I heard he was 270 pounds. He looks healthy to me. And I'm looking at him going, that is a fat NBA guy. That's NBA fat right there. And if you're the GM, this is something I wrote today, that behind the scenes, because GMs do not get to unload all of what they feel to the public, but in private, if you're around a team, they'll just grouse and carp and bitch constantly because their lives are miserable. Being the general manager, there is no greater chasm between job you thought you wanted as a teenager,
like prestige of the job, and what you actually do on a day-to-day basis.
Yes. And hey, you get paid a lot of money if you're at the top of this profession, sure, but it is not fun. It is managing up and down and around. It is the owner yelling at you, the superstar player trying to boss you around, the coach yelling at you, bitching at you. You're in the room with the minority owners trying to make them feel as though they have influence on the team that they do not have. It's a terrible job. And one of the things that drives them the craziest is when the guy won't get in shape. It just drives them insane. It drives them insane. They're going to get fired if this guy doesn't show up. His job is literal exercise. Exercise. I mean, when I put on weight, I put on weight. Maybe I'm making excuses for myself, but that's not my job. I mean, you just imagine how hard you have to work at not being in shape if you are Luka and have that minutes load and have those practices and have people surrounding you willing to just feed you the healthiest food. And we give Luka a pass on it because of the accomplishments. We do, which makes sense to a degree. It's almost like, it's like he's Zion Williamson with results. That's what it feels like.
See, so that's the difference, man. You can say what you want about the kid who loafs in class, who might show up late, who doesn't hand in every single homework assignment. But if he gets 95 and above on every single test, what can you really say or do about it? Now, where that analogy or comparison gets complicated is that, again, these are reasonable things to say, like these soft tissue issues where because you're out of shape, you're finding yourself overcompensating on different parts of your body. Also, the nature of people don't know and haven't watched Luka Dončić play, the nature of his game is this acceleration, deceleration, start, stop, kind of switch gears kind of game that some people would argue puts even more strain on his calves. Right? Just the nature of what makes him special as a, ball handling operator is being exacerbated by extra weight being carried around and a dude who just isn't in the best conditioning. So there's the actual cutting of the weight. And then there's the having the wind to play 43 minutes a night against the best defenses in the world come April, May, and June. And so if when you add all of those factors in, again, I need to say this. I don't agree with what Nico Harrison did. I think the judgment that he got a piss poor haul for somebody who is recognized as top 4. A lot of people would say in the playoffs, he's been top 2. Many people would point out that, if you want to say Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is better than him, he was better than him head to head in a series that Dallas ultimately crushed that team. Okay. Yeah. And so that guy, even with his problems off the court, you just cannot give him away for Anthony Davis and, the incentives of a win now move. And I do think, the guy's stated goal of win now has been achieved, one. And I do think, two, that opening up the process would not have necessarily gotten them a better win now haul.
Yeah,
this
I would
year.
agree with that. Yeah, I'm thinking about it. I mean, I think ideally when you make a move like this, you're not even trying to win now. You're doing what
Exactly.
Presti does.
Yes.
In a weird way, if you're willing to do this, you're afforded an opportunity that the Warriors wish they had. The Warriors wish that they could do the Presti and trade Steph Curry for a bunch of picks to furnish their future. They can't. Too much of an emotional connection.
Mutiny. Oh my God.
Too many championships, too much of an emotional connection, too big a statue in front of Chase Arena incoming. You can't do it. But that's what you do. That's what you do. That's what Presti did. But they didn't really do that now, did they? They did this weird in between.
But look, again, Presti did it with Westbrook, who I would argue was already in decline. Paul George, who had no cachet with the fan base. KD left of his own volition.
Yeah.
Also never achieved a championship. Went to one finals. And also you work for an ownership group who is probably in the top 3 or 4 cheapest in the league. And so he has a different mandate from his ownership group to keep costs down. It's like, all right, cool. Eventually we'll get this thing rolling. We have buy-in from our fans. Okay, cool. I think another thing that gets underrated here is the human component. That's why I think the NBA is back, Ethan, because I think the NBA, better than all these other sports, is selling the human component of everything. It's all about this emotional, sort of story-driven human interest element that I think drives the popularity of the sport. And I think the biggest lagging indicator of guys like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, quite frankly, guys like Luka Dončić, they had no public buy-in. And I think this brings, with the attention that it brings and the intrigue that it brings, it's like everybody's now invested in this story. Wonderkind turned pariah by his own organization, right? Or it's not
they're
pariah,
killing him.
just they are killing him on the way out, and they're selling him to the evil empire, the mighty Los Angeles Lakers.
I wish Nico was even more bombastic. Just look, we didn't want to give a fat drunk $350 billion.
That's what he's saying, though. That's what he's saying. And, your addendum to the Luka piece today, I thought was excellent, by the way, because I do think you highlighted, again, some of the personality elements where you foreground Nico Harrison's history in the basketball business, big basketball business, where he does 20 years of basically him being the point person for who Nike should sign at the grassroots level. This is like basically college recruiting at a certain point. It's GMing in a certain aspect. Obviously, it's not NBA basketball GMing, but it's talent acquisition in a way that it's like, yo, we're going to identify the next stars of the basketball world as early as possible, get our hooks into them. And, by all accounts, like, this guy was really good at what he did. And in the course of doing that job, he became close to one Kobe Bryant, whose reputation, everybody knows it. It's Mamba mentality. It's the Kobe system. It's the maniacal work ethic. It's the,
You're getting up at 4 a.m. I'm getting up at 3 a.m.
Yes, it's Team USA practice in 08 Redeem Team. He's the first person in the gym, last person to leave. And him inspiring awe from the best players in the world. Inspiring awe from this guy's work ethic, right? And that's who Nico Harrison spends a decade plus, becoming very close to and forging a personal relationship with, not just business-wise. And he's so close to that person. He himself is a Division I athlete. Okay, hyper-competitive guy in his own right. He's part of a winner last year that goes to the NBA Finals, and he sees the one guy that's in the way of getting back there. And he's in the way because he's a fat, lazy, beer-guzzling, hookah-smoking slob in his estimation.
Yes. This is his internal monologue that we're speculating on. Yes. Well, and it would be hard to even fathom it if you're Nico and you've been around Kobe and you've seen the burning desire Kobe had, that he really was his myth in a way.
Yep.
Could you imagine Kobe Bryant being as close to his ultimate goals
No.
and taking it as unseriously
No, you can't.
as Luka. I mean, Luka is not doing things that the 12th guy on the bench is more than willing to do, has to do. He is not doing those things. And again, it's Zion Williamson with results because he's the reason they're in those finals. And he's also not giving them a shot of winning those finals because they're running him ragged. The Celtics are. He's winded. He's letting the guy just go right by him because he can't do it all. But he didn't prepare himself to do it all because he didn't bother. And it's a guy we don't have a lot of insight into. He's from Slovenia. We don't know what drives him. Similar to Jokic, we don't know what's behind it. But he's been internationally successful as a professional basketball player from the time he's been a teenager. It's quite possible just... if you're successful to that level from the point that you're a teenager, I'm not sure how much metaphorical hunger that you have. I was lucky to have a modicum of professional success in my mid to late 20s. At that point, I really wanted it. I couldn't imagine having it as a teenager and still wanting it the same way.
You wrote imagine if you wrote the Steph article at 17.
I quit. Well, there were guys like that. There were guys. People are going to mock us for comparing blogging to
that's fine.
Athletics. Yeah, you can mock us. But there were people in that scene back in the day, over a decade ago. Sometimes there'd be like a 14 or 15-year-old prodigy, and it was always very controversial because Kevin Arnovitz was an editor at ESPN, and he would give them a credential at Summer League. And the old crusty sports writers get very angry. It's demeaning us. This kid's here. It's making us look bad. And Kevin would say, look, I'm all about merit. This kid earned it. And those kids, with one exception, one teenage exception, I wonder if you could guess who it was that exception was.
Is it Jovan?
They never continued. Jovan, I think, was a little bit older. Shams was guessed by Mays, but Shams was in a different category. That might be accurate. The exception I'm thinking of is your group chat co-host, Rob Mahoney.
Wow.
Rob Mahoney, the prodigy. Rob Mahoney, the excellent guest on the immediate emergency Bill Simmons podcast on Luka, where I felt a little bit like my subscriber Jason, where Rob is just lavishing Luka with all these compliments. And I start feeling, even though everything that Rob said is correct, there's part of me feeling that he's not Jesus. I mean, he's a fat slob.